My father used to say, judge someone not by what they say, but what they do. If they talk the talk, make sure they walk the walk. This governor, before the election, said he was going to do things to revive the economy in upstate New York and all across the state, upstate and down. He has lived up to that in some regards, even beyond my expectation. We have a lot more work to do, but announcements yesterday to the west of us, east of us, and now we're right here in Monroe County, and I can't thank you enough, both as a citizen and as a legislator. If there was ever a person, really, the right guy at the right time to be the governor and get us back moving in the right direction, working the bipartisan way to get results, it's this governor, our great governor, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator Roback, for that very kind introduction, and moreover, thank you for all the great work that you've done in the friendship and the partnership that you've brought to Albany. It's my pleasure to be here today. President Seligman, you know his great leadership within the university, but I've had a chance to work with him in his leadership in the Regional Economic Development Councils, and he has done a really fantastic job. So he's been wearing a number of hats. Let's give him a round of applause. We don't pay him that much for all his work on the Regional Economic Development. Gets a lot of heartburn in return, though, but he's done an extraordinary job, and we can't thank you enough. We have a lot more to do, as everyone has said, but we're on the right path, and it's a different path than we've been on, and thank you for your leadership. IBM, thank you for this great partnership. We're excited about it. I think it's going to be a fantastic commercial venture. I think it's going to be great for academia, and I think it's going to help people at the end of the day, and it's going to increase our capacity to serve people in the health system, and that's a special contribution. So we thank you for being with us today. My colleagues in the legislature, Assemblyman Harry Bronson and my colleagues in the Assembly, and Senator Roback, and my colleagues in the Senate. We've had a good couple of years in Albany, in the legislature. I told them right up front, I said, I'm going to take credit for anything that happens that's good in Albany, because you know I'm going to get the blame for anything that happens that's bad. So we've had a good couple of years, but it has been because we work together. And that sounds simple, and it sounds like something they would teach you in third grade. You don't learn until much later in life that working together is actually very, very hard. You know, it sounds simple. You know, why can't we just get along? Sounds simple. But we made a pact a year and a half ago, and we said we were going to put our politics aside, and we were going to leave our politics at the door, and we were going to do what's right for the people of the state of New York, and we were going to come together to get things done for the people of the state of New York. And we were tired of political arguments and political gridlock, because you can always find a reason to argue. You always can. It's true in life. It's true in politics. We were going to try it a different way, and we were going to try to find commonality rather than stress differences. And I applaud these gentlemen who are here today, because they really did do an extraordinary job these past 18 months. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. And Senator Jim Malisi is not going to be returning next year to Albany. That is going to be a tremendous loss for his district. It's going to be a loss for me personally. I had the opportunity to work with the senator on some very difficult votes. And I want to say this to the senator. To me, public service at its highest form is really about principle, and fighting for principle, and having the courage to fight for principle. I came to public service because I was raised in a house with a father who loved public service, and he would talk about it at the kitchen table, and he would get all excited about it because it was a passion for the principle, and it was the pursuit of justice, and it was about doing the right thing and fighting the good fight. And it was about having the courage to stand up and do the right thing when it was hard, when it was daunting. And who stands and who stays seated? And that was the measure of a person in life. Did you fight for the principles? Did you stand up when society needed you to stand up and when it was hard to stand up. Jim, you stood up on a matter of principle when this state needed you to stand up. And when you stood up, others followed you. That's what leadership is all about. That's what public service is all about. And you provided this state with a great model of how it's done when it's done right. Senator Jim Alisi. Let me say this on today before we cut the ribbon, but I don't even know that ribbons are appropriate anymore. I don't know that you can cut a ribbon on a computer. I think we need a whole new paradigm now. Maybe we cut a cable. I don't know what we cut. No, we don't cut a cable. Bad joke in this room. Take their cables very seriously. Maybe an old cable, an outdated cable. Yesterday's cable. We did, as you heard before me, we set out 18 months ago to build a new New York. And part of building a new New York was the recognition that if you want the state to do well, we have to have the private sector doing well. That the private sector and business and jobs are the engine that drives the train. Jobs, jobs, jobs. People want a future. People want a career. Local governments need tax revenues. You have to get the economy going. And in New York, that was a special chore for us for two reasons. Number one, the economy nationwide is a work in progress, especially here in New York. And number two, New York has had a long-held reputation as being anti-business. I spent 8 years in Washington, D.C. under the Clinton administration. I was Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, which primarily did economic development. I worked all across the country. And I would talk to business leaders all across the country, and I would say, have you ever thought of going to New York? And they would smile like it was a joke. We had such an anti-business perception. And the perception in and of itself is damning. If people believe you are anti-business and business has no home here, then you have a problem in reality. We also had factors that were driving that perception. And we said we have to attack it and we have to change it for the good of the entire state. And that's what the new New York and that's what changing New York is all about. And we said we're going to attack it on two levels. First, there are things that we can do on a statewide level to change the relationship, to change the culture. It's the attitude that government has vis-a-vis business. It's the regulations. It's the policies. Are you easy to do business with or are you hard to do business with? And that was a tone setter from Albany, which we changed. It's tax policy, because it's very simple. New York has no economic future if you're going to be the tax capital of the nation, period. People are mobile. They shop. They will move. We have young people leaving from upstate New York for decades because they thought the future was elsewhere. You have to get taxes down. And working with my partners, I can stand before you today and say every person in this room will pay taxes at a lower rate this year than they paid last year in the state of New York. And the middle class, roughly from $30,000 to $300,000, will pay the lowest tax rate in 58 years when they pay their taxes in New York. So it's not just the rhetoric. We made changes. We got it, and we acted. That was on one level. The second level, to grow the economy, had nothing to do with Albany. Because New York does not have one economy. Everybody talks about the economy of New York. There is no one economy. There are regional economies. There's a Long Island economy. There's a North Country economy. There's a Western New York economy. And they are different economies. They're driven differently. They work at different rates. Some are doing well. Some are not doing as well. But we can help set the table from Albany. But those economies are going to have to be driven regionally. Now, we can help organize the regions. We can help partner with the regions. But the vision, the energy, the partnership has to be a regional one. Because what works in the Finger Lakes is different than what works in New York City, and you can tell the same story all across the state. So we set up the regional economic councils, that's Joel's other job, to bring people together to come up with that long-term economic vision for that region, and then we partner. Today is a big piece of that regional vision. The I-390 interchange, this computer center at the University of Rochester, which, as Joe said, this is going to make it internationally competitive, not just nationally competitive, internationally competitive. I can't tell you how excited we are to be part of it. My last point is this. Joe and I, Senator Roback and I were chatting about upstate New York before we came out. One of the things I always found in upstate New York is that in many ways there was too much focus on yesterday, too much psychic energy spent on the past and what used to be, and not enough focus and energy on tomorrow and where we're going. I've always believed when we pick a goal and we pick a point on the horizon and we say we're headed in that direction and we pull together, we're going to get there. Because no state has what we have here in the state of New York. But we had to go through that exercise. We had to stop focusing on yesterday, start focusing on tomorrow, and then pull together to get there. This is about tomorrow, and it's my pleasure to be part of it. Thank you very much for having me.